Mr. Chair, you may start the meeting, sir.
Okay, give me just a moment. I don't have my. Bear with me. Trying to find.
Can you see it?
I can. Thank you, Robert.
Yep.
I'm in a meeting. I'm in a meeting, Joe. Good evening. I'm going to call the meeting of the Board of Appeals meeting on Thursday, July 28th to order. Ms. Quillen, will you please call the roll?
Actually, Ms. Quillen can't make it, so I will be doing this today.
Mr. Love,
No
will you
problem.
please call the roll, sir?
Mrs. Les,
Here.
Mrs. Snyder,
Here.
Mr. Whitley,
Here.
Chairman Smalls.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Agenda item 2 is approval of the June 30 meeting. If there are no changes, edits, modifications, etc., I will entertain a motion to approve.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the minutes of the meeting as approved. I mean, as written, sorry.
Thank you, Ms. Snyder. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Les. Any discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Love, would you please call the roll?
Snyder, Mrs. Snyder,
Yes.
Mrs. Les,
Yes.
Mr. Whitley,
I'm going to abstain.
Chairman Smalls.
I vote yes.
Minutes are approved.
Were we going to call agenda item 4 out of order? Mr. Love, is that, or are we going to just go down and follow the agenda?
I believe we were just going to follow the agenda, sir.
Excellent. Okay. Agenda item 3, appeals application number 928, resolution number 22-05-BOA for 425 Prince George Street, filed by Mr. Michael Sciscenti. I hope I'm saying that correctly. The applicant is requesting that the City of Laurel, Department of Fire Marshal and Permit Services not enforce section 18-82.17 IRC-18, Part 2, Chapter 3, Section R311, means of egress, R311.1.1, means of egress of the City of Laurel Code for the renovation project relating to the City of Laurel permit number 20220207. This item was tabled on June 30th, 2022. And for the record, the record for this agenda item is available for review. I'm sorry, Mr. Love, I don't have the exact text. Mr. Taub, did you have any opening statement you'd like to make, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to explain to the board that the particular section that you referenced, that is the matter on appeal, in that section, the operative language is that all basements, and this is with regard to 1 and 2 family dwellings, and in that it states that basement rooms for which a building permit is required shall have a minimum of 2 exits. All basements and cellars, when provided in 1 and 2 family dwellings, must have a basement or cellar exit door leading directly to the outside grade. This is the issue that has been appealed by the appellant in this case. And I just want to explain to the board and may remind the board that there are only 3 bases upon which an appeal of the fire marshal and Department of Permit Services decisions can be taken or can be accepted. One is that the true intent of the code or the rules legally adopted thereunder have been incorrectly interpreted. The second is that the provisions of the code do not fully apply. And the third is that an equally good or better form of construction can be used. The appellant in this case has not argued either of the first 2. The appellant is relying on his belief that the provision of, if I recall correctly, a ladder leading to a window as the means of egress is, as it states here, equally good or better than would be a set of stairs leading to a door to the outside grade. And in short, the board has to make its decision based upon whether or not it believes that the ladder to the exit window is equally good or better as a form of construction as compared to a set of stairs leading to the exit door out to the outside grade. So I just want to be able to make sure, I just want to make sure that the board is aware of the standard that must be applied in this case. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Taub. Before we go on, I would ask that everyone that is on this particular agenda item to please identify themselves before we move any further. Is the applicant on this call?
Yep, I'm here. I'm Michael Sciscenti, the applicant.
Thank you. Is there any staff from the city or anyone representing the applicant on this call?
Yes, I am. My name is Clifton Steed. I'm the building inspector.
Thank you, Mr. Steed. Anyone else?
Then Danny Selby, the director of fire marshal, is on here as well.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Love, is there anyone else before I go on? Is there anyone else? I'll ask Mr. Love, is there anyone that has signed up to speak, presenting any new information that we did not have before us at our earlier meeting?
We did not have anybody sign up to speak with any new information, Chairman Smalls.
Thank you. I'll ask the members of the board, is there any new information discussion that you care to have before I call for a vote?
I have a question for our legal counsel.
Yes, Mr. Whitley.
I was not at the last hearing. Am I able to vote on this particular matter?
Let me ask you, Mr. Whitley, have you had a chance to review the record, or the transcript, whatever the documents that were available with regard to the last hearing?
I have not reviewed a transcript, but I reviewed the other records that were submitted.
You did, okay. Do you feel like you have enough information with regard to the nature of the appeal and the basis for the appeal by Mr. Sciscenti to understand it fully and be able to make that decision yourself at this point?
Yes,
All right, and I think you're certainly able to vote on this matter. Yes.
thank you.
I have a quick question. At the last meeting, it was tabled for the fire marshal to provide additional information. So what, just curious what the additional information was. I didn't really notice that in the packet.
Marshal?
Yes. We made from my understanding, we pulled the file with all the inspection reports, and I believe they made them available because it was a large file for anybody to come down to the fire marshal's office and review them.
Okay. I hope the board reviewed them then.
We had the opportunity, sir, based on the information that was presented, and I have been informed that there was no additional information that was added. And correct me, staff, if I'm wrong, but there was no additional information added to the record. Hearing nothing, I presume that that's
Okay.
correct.
So I just want to make sure I understand correctly. We tabled this last meeting for additional information to be provided, but that wasn't reviewed or provided. There was an opportunity, but it wasn't reviewed. I just want to make sure I heard that right.
I'm saying, sir, that there apparently from staff was no additional information to be provided.
Okay. Okay.
We tabled it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, because that was the reason to table it, because the board had wanted additional information to be able to make a decision. So I was just making sure I understood. Thank you.
If the file was available for members of the board to review, which turned out to be the exact same packet of information that the board was presented for the meeting that was held.
Okay.
So there was no additional information.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hmm?
Is there any additional comments from board members or from staff before I call for a vote?
Chairman Smalls, I'd just like to say that we did not have the full packet at the last meeting that we have now. And we received the packet and we were able to study that. So we did have more information for this meeting.
Okay. Okay. Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I believe Mr. Selby may have a statement that he may want to read into the record at this point before the board takes a vote on this. If I'm not mistaken, I believe there's just a statement that he would want to read into the record.
Okay, Mr. Selby.
Yes, sir. Good evening, everybody. Appeal application number 928 was filed on April 20th, 2022 by Mr. Sciscenti, 425 Prince George Street, Laurel, Maryland, 20707, requesting a waiver of the Laurel City Code requirements of egress door to the exterior grade and to allow the two as-built egress points in the basement to be sufficient for finishing the basement at 425 Prince George Street. On April 1st, 2022, a letter explaining the nature of the application and advising of the scheduled public hearing before the City of Laurel Board of Appeals was sent by certified mail to contentious property owners. 3 letters were returned in the mail. The file contained a certificate of publication verifying that this application and public hearing was advertised in the June 16th, 2022 edition of the Prince George's Post. On June 30th, 2022, the City of Laurel Board of Appeals held a public hearing regarding the application, and all of those wishing to be heard were heard. The Board of Appeals, on the motion by Ms. Snyder, seconded by Ms. Collins, and carried on a roll call vote, as all members present in the affirmative voted to table appeal application number 928 for the property located at 425 Prince George Street, Laurel, Maryland, 20707. On July 7th, 2022, a letter explaining the previous actions of the board and advising of the scheduled public hearing of July 28, 2022, before the City of Laurel Board of Appeals was sent by certified mail to all contingent property owners. No return receipts were received. The file contains an affidavit signed by the applicant attesting that a zoning sign has been placed on the subject property, has remained, and shall remain until a decision is reached by the City of Laurel Board of Appeals. That concludes the reading of my file. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mrs. Selby. Is there any other comments or questions for the public hearing?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask Mr. Sciscenti one more time regarding, I felt that there was a lot of confusion at the last meeting on what exactly, can you go through that with us one more time?
Yeah, be happy to. Thank you. Thank you for asking. So the well, I want to make sure I answer the question properly. Are you asking for the summary of the timeline from my perspective, or something different?
Regarding the inspections and the confusion that.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. So we submitted the plans you see here, which were 25 pages, and I believe it says it in the packet. I believe it was just over 30%. 9 of the pages prominently showed in some form or another the fact that the basement would be finished. So here you can see a stair and windows, and it was submitted in August, and the permit was issued and the plans were stamped in September of 2021. There ended up being, according to the permitting site, at least 5 inspections on site, and then in about 6 months into the project, in March of 2022, when over 80% of the project was done, we got told that we had to build exterior stairs, and at this point we'd already backfilled, which had the inspected basement and footings, because we needed to be in compliance with this code that had been missed when the permit was issued. And at that point, it was indicated to me that it would cost at least $15,000, if not more. Most of the project funds were gone because it was the end of the project. And so I indicated in discussions with Fire Marshal, they said they wouldn't close the permit unless I committed to never finishing the basement. I said, well, what if we appeal it and I don't finish it during the appeal? Can we close the permit, which I need so that the bank can close out my loan? The permit has not been closed. This is something that's happened, I realized, since the last appeal, and the basement has not been finished. And that's where we are today. So my goal is to close the permit, because I would hope that the board would recognize that, a mistake got made. I understand that legally, the fire marshal can come back at any time, even if they make a mistake. The city's lawyer was very clear about that last week. It's not very fair to the homeowners of the city, but I understand. And so I, ask for your understanding. There is an egress window with a ladder, and it was up until very recently that would have been as good by code for egress in basement in the city of Laurel. So yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Board members, I'll refer back again to Mr. Taub's statement regarding what the city code defines as we consider a motion. In other words, I'm asking if there are no further questions, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve this appeal as submitted by the applicant with no conditions.
We have a motion to approve the appeal. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Les
Yeah.
has seconded the motion. Any further discussion?
Mhm.
There.
Can you clarify your motion for me? I just want to make sure you said with no restrictions. I want to make sure I understand exactly what you mean.
I'm basically saying that would like to move that we approve the appeal as submitted by the applicant. Period.
And that motion was seconded by Ms. Les.
Mhm.
Okay. Mr. Whitley.
Please answer my question.
Mr. Love, would you call the roll?
Mrs. Snyder,
Yes.
Mrs. Les,
Yes.
Mr. Whitley,
I'm going to abstain.
Chairman Smalls.
I'm going to vote no.
I don't believe the motion carries then.
Mr. Taub, where does that leave us, sir?
Well, I believe since we have a quorum here this evening, and the vote was to approve the appeal was a vote of 2-1, I believe that would still allow the vote of approval to succeed. There's a quorum, and I believe that was a legitimate vote. It was moved and seconded, and I don't believe there's any basis to say otherwise. I would like to look at that a little more closely if I could, and I would be glad to come back to the board at the next meeting to clarify that. But I do believe at this point, it does appear that the motion has been voted on to be approved.
Thank you, sir. With that, the motion carries to approve. That's that. So that closes that agenda item.
Mr. Chairman, just to let you know, I will be, I don't believe that there is any legal issue in the second item on the agenda, so I'll be leaving the meeting at this point.
Okay. All right.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much. All right.
Just wanted
bye-bye.
to I wanted to thank the board for their time and consideration, and again, I've mentioned this before in the HCC meetings to the staff and Mr. Selby and Mr. Steed. I know that the fire marshal has worked very hard on this project. So thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, Mr. Sciscenti.
Take care.
Best of luck to you, sir.
Thank you.
Agenda item 4, special exception application number 929, resolution number 22-06-BOA for 132 Washington Boulevard, filed by the new Leaf Investment LLC, seeking approval to allow for rental hall use. I'll open the public hearing at, looks like 6:25. Mr. Love, who is going to present?
It's going to be Deputy Director Burrows.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and fellow board members. This is Deputy Director Monte Burrows, and I'll be doing a reading for tonight. Special exception application 929 filed on May 17, 2022 by New Leaf Investments LLC to add rental hall use to the existing building located at 132 Washington Boulevard, Laurel, Maryland, 20707. Under date of May 20th, 2022, a cover letter, justification letter, and security plan asking for comments were sent to the following agency: the Maryland State Highway Administration, the Prince George's County Health Department. No agency had issues with the proposed application. Under date of May 20th, 2022, a memorandum asking for comments was sent to the following city departments: Police Department, Department of Public Rec, Office of Fire Marshal and Permanent Service, and the Department of Public Works, and there was no issue with the application. On June 23rd, 2022, a letter explaining the nature of the application and advertising of scheduled public hearings before the City of Laurel Planning Commission and Board of Appeals was sent by certified mail to all contiguous property owners. All return receipts were received. Just to note, the applicant is seeking special exception approval to add rental hall use. The applicant would like to use the building to hold social events and private functions. The applicant proposes to provide rental hall use 3 days a week: Fridays, 6 p.m. to 12 a.m., Saturdays, 6 p.m. to 12 a.m., and Sundays, 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. The applicant is in the City of Laurel parking modification zone. The applicant total required parking spaces is reduced by 50%. The applicant does not have existing parking on site. Street parking does not factor into the meeting required parking. The applicant storefront is located along US Route 1. The applicant has submitted and secured parking spaces from adjacent property 205 Washington Boulevard. The applicant is required to provide 40 parking spaces. Because of being in a parking modification zone, the parking required is reduced to 20 parking spaces. The applicant will be providing 30 parking spaces. The applicant has a parking agreement with the property owner at 205 Washington Boulevard to provide parking for events. At the City of Laurel Planning Commission held on July the 12th, 2022, the following action was taken on the subject application. On motion by Ms. Bonner, seconded by Mr. Wilford, and carried on a roll call vote on all members present, the Planning Commission recommended that the Board of Appeals approve special exception application 929 located at 132 Washington Boulevard, Laurel, Maryland, 20707 with the following conditions. The applicant shall adhere to all approved hours of the operation stated in the staff report, and a change shall be notified by the city. The applicant should comply with all federal, state, and local laws and regulations for protection of the use of the property. And the applicant shall obtain all permits required by the City of Laurel for this business. The file contains a certificate of publication verifying that the application and public hearing was advertised in the July 14, 2022 issue of the Prince George's Post. The file contains an affidavit signed by the applicant attesting that a zoning sign has been placed on the subject property, has remained, and shall remain until a decision is reached by the Board of Appeals. That concludes the file, Mr. Chair, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burrow. Is the applicant present or representative of the applicant present at this meeting?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, we are present.
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Davis, if you care to make any comments, the floor is yours.
No, we appreciate the opportunity and we will abide by all the rules that you guys have set. There was some concern about pedestrian, but Ms. Davis, would you like to say anything?
Yes, I'm here. How are you today? Can you hear
Doing
me?
well. Yes.
Yes. Hey, good afternoon. No, we do not like have anything to say. If you have questions, we will answer them as proceed.
Board members, any questions or comments for the applicant or staff?
Mr. Chairman, I do. My first question is the approval of the use of this building contingent on the parking, which would be across US 1 from this building?
It is across the street. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, directly. And we also will provide security to lead patrons to the crosswalk on Montgomery Street, there is a pedestrian crossing right there, so everyone is safe. And we have a crosswalk at Montgomery Street, and also we have 2 entrances from Washington Boulevard to Montgomery Street at the parking lot. And we will have 2 officers working at both entrances at any time we have events to navigate patrons to the crosswalk on Montgomery Street.
To answer the first part of your question, no, I don't think this approval was contingent on the parking situation, but we were made aware of the parking situation. And so we put in a plan in place, which is what Ms. Davis just described, which is having security, having the lights well lit, and directing the patrons to the crosswalks on both streets so that they're not just cutting across the main road. And our security they'll be specifically in the parking lot.
So what is the maximum number of people that might be crossing across this busy highway during an event?
So at this point, we're really thinking that our events will be anything between 50 to 70 people. This is more so going to be appealing to like little graduation parties, baby showers, engagement. As you know, with the pandemic raging for the past 2.5 years, a lot of people kind of put off their celebrations and they're more downsizing and keeping things small. So that's the crowd that we're appealing to. We're appealing to smaller celebrations that are more intimate. So more than likely, carpooling is going to be an option. So we're thinking 50 to 60 patrons, 30 to 40 cars max. 20 to 30 cars max.
And if these people are not walking up to the light, is this security person going to be standing in the middle of this highway stopping traffic?
No, the security is going to be enforcing that they head up to the pedestrian. Like we are specifically designating 2 officers in the parking lot, and that is their sole job. That's separate from the security that we'll have inside the venue.
Now, would this be at the Laurel Police Department directing traffic?
So we have off-duty officers that we have been contacting that are willing to work. They will not be representing the city of Laurel. There'd be off-duty officers that we're employing. And then inside we'll have private security.
So you're hiring off-duty Laurel police officers to escort these people across US 1?
No, we are navigating.
We're having them direct the patrons to the crosswalk so that they do not decide to just zigzag through the main road. And that's the reason why.
Council, I'm sorry to interrupt. I believe your question was, is parking contingent to this use? And yes, it is. The parking has to be approved for them to be allowed to have this use, because they don't have any on-site parking, and we do not allow for street parking. So to answer your question, the parking is contingent to this use. Yes, it is.
Mr. Chairman, can we ask if this was a unanimous vote by the Planning Commission?
The record is there. Mr. Burrows, do you have that information, or Mr. Love? I will simply say, just based on the record, that it was obviously unanimous, or majority rather. But
It was,
I
Mr.
don't know.
Mr. Chair, yes, it was that was a 3-1 vote in favor.
3-1.
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Snyder?
Yes, sir.
You got that 3-1?
Yes, thank you.
All right. If you don't have any other questions, Ms. Les or
I have a
Mr. Whitley?
question.
Mr. Whitley?
Has this applicant operated any other banquet halls or this type of use anywhere else?
No. No, we never.
This will be the first venture. But I have managed banquet halls, which is why she has employed me to be her assistant manager.
I don't know. I'm concerned about the parking across the street. There doesn't look like, I live right up the street from where this parking lot is. And there aren't that many spaces over there.
It is.
I mean,
That's correct.
so I don't know where these people would park.
It is. It is.
Council- To interject, Ms. Les, the owner of 205 is supplying 40 parking spaces. I mean, I know from this picture, you can't see the ones that go down to the end of Century 21 behind there. So they do have significant amount of parking.
Okay.
And also because they're in a parking reduction zone, it was reduced by 50%.
Well, I just like to point out, this is not a parking lot. It's a grassy, it was a yard. Now it's just a grassy lot. It's not, lined or anything. So
I don't know.
Can I say something?
Yes,
It's
please.
not grassy. It's not grassy. There's a lawn at the front, but the whole entire is pavement and parking. It's not grassy. It's just one part of the front part.
I'll chime in with a question or two. Can you tell us a little bit about the flexibility of the hours of operation? That is, it was mentioned that there could be graduation parties or celebrations and others. So am I to presume that there could be activity there during the daytime and possibly activities there perhaps in the evening?
So right now, our hours are really going to just be 6 to 12, and then on Sundays we close at 11. We don't have any intention of kind of changing that right now because we want to go with the flow that makes the most sense. It is a new business venture, so we kind of have to be mindful of our overhead and things like that. So it's like, what are the peak hours that people actually show up, have their celebrants out? So we don't want it too early, and we definitely don't want it too late.
So it's a 6-hour window.
Exactly. So
Okay.
to me, that was sufficient time for them to come in, set up their stuff, enjoy their celebration of 3 to 4 hours, and then we're responsible for the cleanup. So they didn't really have to worry about things after the fact.
Now, as you can tell from the questions that are coming from members of the board, Route 1, I've over the years seen many applicants, with the desire to open businesses on that stretch of Route 1 and a bit beyond, where the concern has been with people crossing Route 1 in groups to some extent. You've explained to my satisfaction at least, that you will have designated people am I safe to presume, on both sides of the street?
That
That
is
will be
correct.
directing people from the parking area to the crosswalk, and then on the other side of the street where the venue is, ensuring that they do walk in the crosswalk.
That is exactly
Yes.
correct. And the reason, there was a method to the madness of reaching out to, some of our off-duty. As I said, I've managed event halls before, so I do know, some people based on bartenders, caterers, security. So there was a method to the madness of reaching out to the off-duty officers, because I felt like they had more of a presence, like people are less likely to disobey an off-duty officer. I mean, they may not know that he's off duty, but they're less likely with that kind of authority presence than if I had my regular security in a black shirt that just says security. So that was the reason why we were adamant about employing them specifically to manage the outside.
For your events, is alcohol allowed?
At this time, no, sir. We do not plan to have any alcohol. It's going to be mostly virgin.
Okay.
What does that mean at this time?
At this time, all we have is our business plan, and we're trying to get it up and running. Like, if in 2 years or 5 years, everything is going successfully, it may be possible that we come back to you and ask you if we can get a different license, or we might ask you if we can
Weddings.
expand. But right now, we're just focused on the setup and the startup.
Can I say something? Hello?
Yes.
Yes, well, if we, I want to advocate on that. If we have a wedding, yes, we will have the catering, licensed catering come in and serve alcohol if we have a wedding, yes.
Okay, staff, is there a special permit that the applicant here would have to have for that kind of service?
They would have to go through Prince George's County for that.
Prince George's, okay, to obtain a alcohol and beverage license or something like that?
Yes, through the liquor board.
It would require a special event permit. That's correct.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, where would the catering trucks, where would they be parking to bring the food into this venue? Would they be across in that parking lot also?
So if you look on the image on the front, there's enough space. I'm sorry, my call is being interrupted. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. If you look on the front, there's enough space for you to kind of pull in and offload. We don't expect them to be there longer than 10, 15 minutes to offload, because this is pre-cooked food that they're going to be bringing inside in foil trays. And then after that, they'll be going across the street to the parking lot to occupy a space in the parking lot. So it would really just be to load off and load on whatever it is that they are taking back with them at the end of the night.
If there are parking spots available out there.
Well, the caterers are generally the first set to arrive, right? The caterers and the decorators, so it won't be a problem for them. And the caterer won't stay. A caterer staff may stay. We're talking 1 or 2 to serve the food. Again, we're very COVID conscious here. No one really wants to eat from a buffet that everyone is picking on. You kind of want the person gloved up, masked up, and serving. So we may have a catering staff, but it wouldn't be that their truck would occupy the space until it's time for them to return.
We also have a rear entrance. Don't forget to have the rear entrance.
Mr. Davis.
I do have one other question for staff. What is the capacity per the fire marshal?
Right now, I could answer that. It's a 99 at this moment. The last time we did it.
99?
Yes, sir.
That's standing, seated? How is that defined?
It's 99 now, yes. Seating.
It'd be 99 total in the building.
Regardless, seated or standing?
That's correct.
Got it. Okay.
I have a question. I know in Prince George's County, if you're below 99, you're not required to have the building sprinkled. Is that the same for the city of Laurel?
I believe that all the commercial buildings would have to be sprinkled, but I will have to contact the fire marshal on that.
Do we know whether this building is sprinkled?
I believe it is. I'll ask the applicant that.
No, it's not, but the fire marshal did came and do an inspection, and I was told 99 people at that moment.
No, they're talking about the sprinkler system. Is there the
Yes,
sprinkler?
I said no. I said no, but at the time that we had the inspection, it was 99 without the sprinkler. And that's, I believe that was one of the reasons why I got 99 from Danny.
Okay. Board members, any other questions, comments?
If there were to be a event or a fire or something at the facility, where would the people be able to run out to? I'm just.
Actually, there is an exit sign in the exit door in the back, and there's 2 exit door in the front. And it's a big, huge hall, so it's not like a lot of rooms, so it's very easy to exit.
I was more concerned about where they would exit onto. Would they exit onto, would they be exiting onto Route 1? Where would they be exiting onto?
They will actually exit in the back of the building.
Or if the fire
That's the back of 132 Washington Boulevard.
Okay, if the fire is in the back, they would have to exit onto the front.
Say that again, sir.
So if the fire was in the back, they would have to exit onto the front, correct?
They would have to exit in the front, yes. On the streets, on the street walk.
Okay, all right.
But we do not have, can I say one question? We do not have a kitchen. So therefore, it would have to be something dramatic to have a flat fire, because we do not obtain or have a kitchen.
Understood. Any other questions, comments before I call for the vote? Hearing none, board members, I will entertain a motion. Don't everyone speak at once. I'll entertain a motion up or down. As you've read.
Okay, Chairman Smalls, I'm going to speak up and say that I vote to deny this application due to the safety hazards of the building, this highway. I don't think there's enough parking, so I vote to deny.
Is that's your motion?
Yes, sir.
Is there a second on the motion?
I have the same feeling. I have real reservations about that Route 1 crossing over and going up to the corner to make the crossover and at the light. So I'm going to vote deny.
We have a motion and a second with discussion. Mr. Love, would you call the roll?
Mrs.
Chairman?
Snyder?
Mr.
Yes.
Chairman, I have a question. I see that our counsel has appeared. I wanted to see if he had anything to add before we voted.
Not with regard to the special exception case, Mr. Whitley, I did not.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Mrs. Snyder?
I vote no.
Mrs. Les?
I vote no.
Mr. Whitley?
I'm going to vote yes.
Chairman Smalls?
And I vote yes. Where does that leave us, staff?
Mr. Tom, we're at a 2-2 vote to on this. I don't believe anything carries, correct?
No, it does not carry. You have to have a majority vote to approve.
So where does that leave the applicant?
Well, that's a denial. If it's not approved, then it is not approved.
That would be a denial of so the original motion was to deny the application.
Right.
And that is not, if that was, the motion was to deny an application, excuse me, let me just clarify. That means that that motion was not approved. So if
Okay.
someone wishes to move to approve it, that can be done, but it will
Okay.
still need a majority vote of the board.
Okay.
Thank
I'll move to approve the application.
I will second.
Mr. Love, would you call the vote for approval?
Chairman Smalls,
I vote yes.
Mr. Whitley,
I vote yes.
Mrs. Les,
I vote no.
Mrs. Snyder.
I vote no.
The application does not carry.
Well, thank you guys so much for your time. I
Sorry.
just had a quick question for the two board members that voted no. Would a detailed plan signed off from one of our off-duty officers make you feel more comfortable about the Route 1 situation? Because again, I recognize your concern, and that's something that we thought we worked out the kinks and found a workaround for. But the location is the location, and we've invested a lot in it. So if you could just advise me on what would make you feel more comfortable knowing that the parking is across the street, I'm happy to work on it.
For me, it doesn't change anything because I know that highway, I know the traffic on it. And I'm looking at this parking lot across the street. I can't see people coming out of here, walking up to the traffic light. So I don't know what could change my mind.
Thank you for that feedback.
Any other comments? Okay, the motion fails.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
Mr. Taub has come back on. He has some new information regarding the first application that was brought about. If you could state that.
okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Love, appreciate that. Mr. Chairman, I've gone back and looked at this more carefully in terms of the effect of the vote of 2-1 with a quorum of 4. And as I found out now that the vote would have to have it required 3 votes to succeed. There were not 3 votes to succeed on the motion. And the motion was to approve the appeal. The vote was 2-1. It required 3 votes to succeed. Therefore, the motion did not succeed. So the motion to approve the appeal did not succeed. It failed.
All right, Mr. Taub, in language other than legalese,
Yeah.
tell us exactly where that places the applicant.
Mr. Chairman, since the motion was to approve his appeal and that motion failed, that means that the motion, that the appeal did not succeed. It was a motion to approve the appeal. It failed on a vote of 2-1, and that motion failed. Therefore, his appeal did not succeed. And I might point out also that, this was, well, I'll leave it at that. That's the effect of the vote was that the motion to approve the appeal did not succeed.
So that renders the applicant back at square one?
Well, no, where that leaves is that that's correct. Well, if you want to consider square one to be the determination of the staff and that's where we began this, then yes, that means that there was a vote taken on the appeal. It failed to succeed, and therefore the staff recommendation remains the action of the city. And therefore the appeal since the appeal did not succeed, the staff recommendation to deny the appeal is there. Now, I would say, that's where we are. That the vote was taken. It did not succeed, and therefore the staff recommendation stands as it is.
I got it. Okay. Commissioners, are we all understanding of Mr. Taub's explanation of how this has impacted the vote?
Yes. Do we need to go back on the record and call the case to make this correction, or is it deemed that we've done that?
Mr. Whitley, I would just point out that it doesn't change the vote. The vote, in other words, there's nothing that really needs to go back. It was just my interpretation of the vote. Since nothing has changed, it's just a matter of correcting the effect of the vote. I don't think it needs to go back on the record. If you'd like to, we could certainly do that to correct that and make sure, and maybe we should actually, just to be sure that the applicant understands what has occurred here, and that, again, it does not change anything that was taken, any action that was taken by the board. It's just the determination. My interpretation originally was incorrect, and I apologize to the board for that, but I want to be sure that this is correctly determined and interpreted.
Well, Mr. Taub, you did say you wanted to take some time and verify it, so.
I did. It could simply be said that the applicant can simply be notified that this is the final determination. Again, since no other, it's not a matter of seeking a revote. It's not a matter of seeking any additional evidence. It's simply a matter of interpreting the vote that was actually taken. That's simply a matter, it may just simply be a matter of notifying the applicant as to the effect of that vote.
I will follow your lead. I just wanted to make sure that we had a complete record, just in case there was litigation afterwards.
Understood. And it may be, if you wish to put it back on the record, that's fine. But I mean, we can also, take it up at the beginning of the next meeting. And if you wish, the applicant can be notified. We could do it that way as well. But again, not seeking any change in any actions that were taken, simply a matter of how that action has been interpreted.
Personally, I think we should take it up at the beginning of the next meeting. That way the applicant would have an opportunity to be here and ask questions or whatever the applicant chose to do at that time.
But I agree with you, Mr. Whitley, but just making sure, as council is advising, that there is no vote. This is just to explain to the applicant why there was an effective change, that council did the research and came back. So I am in complete agreement with that. I think that's the fair thing to do for the applicant. Yes.
That's fine, Mr. Chairman. I'll be at the next meeting to explain that and to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir.
I would like to point out that we do not have any meetings, or the city doesn't, during the month of August.
Mm-hmm.
I would suggest then that Mr. Love can call the applicant to notify him of this, because it's not fair to the applicant to let him continue on under the misimpression that he was given at that time. But again, I think if the board wishes to have this addressed at the beginning of the next meeting, just to put it on the record, that's perfectly fine.
And board members, me personally, again, for the sake of the applicant and not to extend this into whatever the next meeting might be, would any of you be opposed to a special meeting in August just to bring the applicant in? The only item on the agenda Is there anything that would preclude us from doing that again, not wanting to tie up the applicant for any unreasonable length of time? Board members, any thoughts?
I have no opposition, no problem with that.
As long as it's via Zoom, I
Yeah.
should be able to make myself available no matter where I am.
Okay. Ms. Les?
Yes, I'm good with that.
Okay, how about staff?
We'll see if we can put that together.
We'll make sure that it's between your Bahama trip. And so we'll figure out a way to work it in, Mr. Love.
I appreciate it. We'll look into that. But it's understood right now that the applicant cannot continue with, the construction on that. And we'll speak to that with the fire marshal and myself and the fire marshal, and we may bring Mr. Talib into it. We'll speak with the applicant.
Excellent. Okay. Well, that concludes our agenda for tonight. Is there any other business to come before the Board of Appeals? Hearing none. Until the next meeting, all of you are old enough to remember Happy Trails.
Yeah,
So happy trails until we meet again.
there we go.
Yeah,
Stay safe and enjoy the rest of your summer.
thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.